Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about Ssangsu Geombup Ship Ilban, Form 11, Part 1. Yeah! Yeah! Form 11 starts in a way that is contrary to a lot of other forms. So the majority of our forms, when we do cut from, obviously all of our cuts are going to be, I think that's true, almost all of our cuts are going to be starting from the left side just because that's where our scabbard is. Some exceptions just because Form 10, you're technically cutting from your right side, but you still drew it from your left. I don't know if I would still call that a draw cut, but this is the first time we're doing a draw cut with our left leg leading. So I know that might not sound like a lot, but going up until this form, this is going to be the first draw, I think, that's going to feel really weird. So the idea is I have a target straight in front of me. I'm going to step with my left foot and do as vertical of a strike as I can, mostly stepping straight forward. You can go on a slight angle. Historically, it was more on a 45, but I believe they've more narrowed it down for this one. So you're going to step forward as much as you can and draw straight up as much as you can. From there, you're going to follow up with another strike. This time you can go more in the 45 into a diagonal strike. So that may not look weird if you're just watching this. You haven't really done this form in a while, but it's going to feel weird. So this is the beginning of a trend. Like every set of forms or so, we're going to have something like this. So for example, in the Yedo 4, we're going to be drawing with our left foot forward. In Bangkok 5, same thing, left foot forward, crosscut, etc., right? So it's the beginning of playing with harder ideas. Let's talk about why you might be even doing that in the first place. So one idea is going to be one major difference that I've kind of seen between HEMA and Gumdo / most Asian martial arts that I've seen is we tend to cut towards the open in HEMA, right? So the idea is if I have a strike, my sword's kind of leading the way a little bit more, and I'm cutting more towards the open with my same side, same foot cutting. Versus a lot of times, not all of the time, but a lot of times, the majority of the time I believe, in Gumdo, we're going to be cutting towards the close. So we're actually going to be aiming for the lead leg. So instead of going away from the lead leg, going towards the lead leg. So one thing that I've found, this is just from my personal experience, not from science, I haven't actually done any data collection on this one, but in general, when you cut towards the open, I find you generally have more power, but less speed for follow-up, right? It's kind of like a little bit more of a glass cannon, not entirely, right? Versus if you cut towards the close, you can very quickly shift into another strike. So that's more of a commentary on the different types of martial arts. So HEMA, depending on your thought process, you can potentially dedicate a little more to each individual strike because you're aiming to get into a bind if you're, depending on your theories and stuff like that. Versus in Gumdo and a lot of Asian martial arts, I might try to do multiple strikes as opposed to dedicating to one and done. Obvious exception being Kendo, where you have at most 2 shots, right, before your interaction has ended, with ideally one of us striking the one down. So one reason might be to get a little more power when we step with the strike. Another reason is going to be, this is more my own personal interpretation, if we cut towards the close, if I set my right foot forward and I did my uppercut, the target area is very much just straight ahead of me and I am in that line of sight, right? So if I am so the camera, right, is going straight towards me, I am cutting towards the camera, I can see you, you can see me, not as good, versus if I'm evading slightly off to the side, ideally your line of sight is going past my shoulder, but I'm still cutting you on my line of sight. So it's a slight evasion while being able to do this, which is further augmented with the idea that we're using an uppercut as opposed to a crosscut. Crosscut doesn't matter if I'm evading, because everything's kind of in my way this way. The idea with an uppercut, again, if you've watched the channel for a while, you know where I'm going with this one. Uppercuts are just more annoying to block. You can block them. They're not hard per se to block, but usually you have to go out of your way to do so. So if that's my first draw, is I'm doing something that's annoying for one person, I'm going to try to follow that up with a more power shot right from here to finish them off. So all of that to say is there's something with the same foot, ideally to both evade and get a little more power and possibly a little more reach, because I can lean a little more into that one, and then leading into our follow-up strike. Ideally, either warded or wrist sniped there, and trying to finish them off with a second strike. The next part, I'm actually going to do just the footwork first. So this is going to maybe be a little bit revealing about myself. I don't know, I haven't analyzed that. But I find this next section, the footwork primarily, to be one of the most important parts of the form, let alone in all of Ssangsu. So maybe not the most important per se, but this is one of those that I think it gives you a lot to digest from here. And the sword work is also going to be relatively interesting as well. So the idea is I've just cut, right? My hips are mostly to the 45. My next target is straight on to my left. So without too much explanation, the idea is I'm going to lead, come up, come back into a bomse, coming back forward in sotose. So the details of that one, right? So I want us to think about that back foot moving to start us off on that momentum. We've talked about this in Form 8 especially, but I want you to be aware of that, the lagging foot in that motion, right? So we're here, we're gonna be doing an upper strike or upper block this way, up, and notice it wasn't necessarily a clean stop, it was a little bit of a drag. So a hint as to maybe what's going on here is you're using this to get the momentum. You're using a lot of power to get into that strike. You're using the dragging of the foot, the gradual drag, to kill the momentum of the strike. So I've made that contact. I'm going to use that footwork to kill the momentum. And I'm going to step back, making sure the momentum is again being eaten up by that back foot. And now that that back foot's loaded like a spring, I'm going to push off that foot to be able to strike into a sotose. So the momentum, right, is the really important part of this form, right? So momentum is pushing forward, being killed, draw back, push back forward. Let's actually try that with the sword, right? So the idea is, and I'll do this facing you so you can kind of see the actual sword work a little bit better. So if I'm this way, just make sure I'm centered, going towards you, I am going to lead, to over-exaggerate, strike, up, you're going to draw back. So in the form, it's going to be a full cross-cut, aim, horizontal thrust. So I'm going to modify that a little bit for application's sake, although when you do the form, you should do that full cross-cut, right? So again, over-exaggerating a little bit. When I take that lead, I want to use my hips to have so much power at that back of the sword, this way. And notice that back foot's going to naturally ease me up, right? So again, from here, use the momentum, go back, going back forward. So one thing I want you to be aware of, right? Because I always want you to be thinking about what the application could be as we're going through a form, because otherwise we're just dancing, which there's always a good purpose for dancing, but if we're thinking about a martial art, we want to be thinking about what we're doing, right? So theoretically, I've hit the sword out of the way, or I got a nice wrist shot from underneath, right? I've hit it. I've come into what we call a right wing guard. So this is going to be a right wing, and this is going to be our left wing. So right wing guard. I tend to have off to the side. I believe that's where we're supposed to be. So I'm in a very provocative position, right? Because this wrist is very, very, very tempting to anyone who's sparred, right? So you're going to draw back, crosscut. Crosscut seems like a weird idea because crosscuts usually aren't powerful per se. They can be very surgical in terms of the striking, but usually it's not usually the first way you go. And then I go for a thrust, and eventually I'm going off in this other direction for funsies, right? So what I want you to try, right, is imagine again that person striking in. You can either think about this as a deflection or that little wrist snipe. Here, instead of cross-cutting them, I want you, if they're, for example, in a guard, deflect the sword just enough that I can use, keep them deflected while sliding in for that thrust. So the idea is if I'm here and they deflected me this way, I might still try to give pressure on the way back, but I've been deflected and I'm aiming for that thrust, either for the solar plexus or for the heart, wherever looks good, right? So let's take it from the top so we can kind of see that whole thing a little bit more cleanly. Talking way through a little bit, right? So still mostly vertical, diagonal. I'm going to step back so you can actually see the footwork. Again, block up, deflect, and thrust. And again, from here you can think about getting ready for a crosscut, which we'll do next video, right? But I want you to go through this form and again, really think about the why-ness of a lot of these motions, right? I want you to feel the momentum being imparted into your sword work from your stances. This is something that I think all martial arts can learn more from, including Gumdo practitioners, is how you're using your stance to augment your strikes, because they're there for a reason, right? There's a reason why so many like Asian martial arts have stance work. So let's make sure we make good use of it. But with that, make sure you stay safe, stay humble, and keep training.